My father stood at the front of a ballroom full of 300 people, raised his champagne glass, and looked directly at me, the daughter sitting in the back row, before announcing, "Everything I've built goes to your sister. Every property, every dollar, every dream. You were never part of the plan." I didn't move. I didn't cry, because at that exact second, a man I had never seen before tapped me on the shoulder, pressed a sealed envelope into my hand, and leaned close enough to whisper 4 words. She knew. "Read this." That envelope contained a $47 million secret my grandmother had spent 15 years building, in silence, in secret, and entirely for me. By the time the night was over, my father's little announcement would turn out to be the single most expensive mistake he ever made. My name is Serena, and for 22 years, my family called me the dumb one. But before I show you what was inside that envelope, you need to understand how deep it went. Because this story didn't begin at a graduation party. It started in a 3rd grade classroom. The afternoon my teacher called my mother and told her I was different. My mother's response, word for word, was, "Yes, we know." That was it. No specialist, no plan, no Saturday tutoring. Just, "Yes, we know. Move on." I was later diagnosed with auditory processing disorder. Information came at me like a radio station, slightly off frequency. I understood everything. Eventually, it just took more time, more effort, more focus than other kids had to spend. I was exhausted by 9 a.m. every single school day. Meanwhile, my sister Celeste was collecting every advantage our parents could purchase. Private college counselors, violin at the conservatory, SAT prep that cost more per hour than most people's rent. When Celeste got into Columbia, first in our family, my father threw a dinner party. 40 guests, catered. He gave a toast that lasted 11 minutes. When I graduated from a state school 4 years later, my father sent a text message. It said, "Congratulations. Period. No party, no toast, no champagne, not even a phone call." And the worst part, I was proud of that diploma. I had fought for every single credit. But the message from my family was clear. You are not the version of success we are interested in. Now, here's where the story changes. And I need you to stay with me, because this is the part my family never saw coming. My grandmother, Nora, was not like the rest of them. While my parents invested in Celeste's future, Grandma Nora spent every Sunday afternoon at her kitchen table with me. She didn't use textbooks. She used stories. She walked me through decades of her own business decisions, showed me how to read people, not contracts but people, and taught me to spot patterns that others were too busy or too arrogant to notice. "Serena," she told me once, her hand flat on a spread of old property records, "your father reads numbers. You read rooms. That is rarer than he will ever understand." I held on to that sentence like a life raft for years. What I did not know, what none of us knew, was that for 15 years, Grandma Nora had been quietly redirecting portions of her private portfolio into a protected trust, tech stocks she had purchased in the 90s, commercial properties that had never been placed under the family name, private equity positions my father did not know existed, a trust with my name on it, and a letter explaining exactly why. Back to the graduation party. My father's announcement was precise and intentional, the way he liked things to be. Standing at the front of the ballroom, surrounded by Celeste's law school colleagues and family acquaintances and business partners, he announced that Celeste would receive the family home, the company's stake, the Tesla, all of it formalized that very week with his attorney. Then, and I will never forget this, he looked toward the back of the room where I was sitting and added, "Serena has always walked her own path. We have accepted that." Polite applause. A few uncomfortable smiles. My aunt studied her shoes. And then the man in the gray suit appeared at my elbow. He introduced himself as David, Grandma Nora's personal attorney. He had been in that room all evening, waiting for precisely this moment. the moment my father revealed, publicly and unmistakably, exactly who he was. I opened the envelope in the hotel lobby, 3 handwritten pages in my grandmother's unmistakable script, and a document summary from David. The trust had been finalized 18 months before her death. $47 million. Diversified, protected, and completely untouchable by anyone with the last name Calloway except me. The letter ended with this: "You never needed them to see you, my love. You just needed time to see yourself. I know what you are waiting for. You want the confrontation." The dramatic moment, I walked back into that ballroom and flipped the table. That is not what happened. And honestly, it is not what I wanted. What I wanted was for my father to understand that the daughter he had quietly erased from the family narrative for 20 years had been seen, truly seen, loved and believed in, by the woman who built everything he had ever inherited. When my father found out about the trust, and he did within 48 hours, he called me. His voice was different, smaller. He asked if we could talk. I said yes, not to perform forgiveness, not to twist the knife, but because Grandma Nora's letter had included one final line. "Mercy is not weakness, Serena. It is the clearest proof of strength. Show them who you are, not who they convinced you to be." So I sat across from my father, and for the first time in my life, I watched him search for words, not at a dinner party, not for a toast, not to impress a room full of guests. For me, just for me, that moment was worth more than $47 million. If you recognize yourself somewhere in this story, if you have ever been the one sitting in the back row while someone else got the toast, I want you to hear this. Being overlooked is not the same as being unseen. Somewhere, someone is watching. Someone already knows your worth. The only question is whether you know it too. Your value was never theirs to assign, and it never will be. If this story meant something to you, subscribe, hit the bell, and leave me a comment. Tell me where you are in your story right now. I read every single one. I'll see you in the next one.